right, Shabbat Shalom, fam. Shabbat Shalom. Another one. All praises. All praises. There we go. Hey, Big Brother, just send a invite from the one you want me to send an invite to. I just thought about that when I seen your profiles pop up. I was like, I don't know which one you're using for which purpose. So just let me know something. Or just send a request. I'll see it. I'll see it. But Shabbat Shalom, fam. Everybody coming in. I got this great little new setup. All right, bet. I'll choose that one. I got this new little setup. Praise y'all. My dad had bought me something a while ago for truck purposes. And I thought, I was looking around and man, I gotta get a better way to set this up. And I saw this and I was like, it's a nice little temperature, which is good. So I like little gizmos like that. Very. Oh, what's going on, Big Booty? Shabbat Shalom, sir.
Shabbat Shalom, sir. I'm finna go send these little quick out. Either one you send it to, it don't matter. But what I did found out is from doing research, when we use the all Jew page, because it's private, because of the business thing, half of the people can't come anyway. So sometimes I just do it just for the sake of, but yeah, they said if I won't take it out for private, that's just my way of protecting that one. So if they get on this one, they get, that one over there still, you know what I mean? Because we don't use it. So it's there. It's relevant, but yeah, they can't charge what they say they can't charge the daddy for what the son, they can't do that. So you already know. Yeah, let's go ahead and get it shared so I can play that song. Hold on. I gotta do lots of things at one time. That's how I'm over here rereading.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom, fam. Great to see everybody coming in. We're gonna be walking around a lot per usual. I'm gonna start out and after the little introduction, I think Genesis, to kind of walk from there. Go to Genesis, Deuteronomy, around that area. Probably go in order and go down with Moses or Moshe, because he related the book of Genesis about Shayat all the way to Deuteronomy. Then there was Joshua, Judges, Ruth. After Joshua, all those things. But yeah, that's why we're going in that order. But Shabbat Shalom, fam. Shabbat Shalom. Great to see everybody. So per usual, we're gonna get that apocryphal text out. The portion of the scroll, and then we're gonna have the 66 books. So that I'm using KJV parts of the scroll. And then that between those two, that's what we're gonna rock with. Praise y'all. On this study, that's one of my favorites for surely, because and there's a video too that I'll share through whatever way of communication if y'all want that helped me with a lot of the notes. Not a lot of the notes, but the mindset that I didn't really see before, because we could kind of glimpse over things, and that goes with the message too. How to let things marinate for the proper, perfect timing. As we're enjoying this little toasty day outside, but it's all right. Got the door open and vibing, relaxing. All praise. Great to see everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. And peace and blessings. Peace towards blessings. Shalom Barak. I'm gonna quiet down. Yep. See, divine timing. Just about. So yeah, let's get out the Bible and the Apocrypha, and we're gonna get walking. Really sitting around the campfire. Welcome back to the campfire, y'all. Shabbat Shalom, Unc. What's going on, Uncle Bruder? Great to see you, sir. Shalom Barak. Peace towards blessings. There's peace in blessings, That's why I love putting those characters together. Shalom and Barak. Peace and blessings. All praises. Yeah, this one right here, this Naphtali, man. I know we're not supposed to have favorites. Y'all doesn't have favorites, but so I can. No, but I am do my best to be like y'all and always possible. But this is one of my favorites right here. Yeah, slept on Naphtali or Napa, as we'll break down. Slept on Napa a little bit. My bad. Yeah. Oh man, my bad, ancestor. But reading his testament, even though too, like it's man, but it explains it. Naphtali is like that. Those deer in the woods, you see them at certain points, divine timing, but they're very sensitive. And Naphtali wasn't neglected, wasn't taken out of anything. There's a reason why he wasn't not one that's really talked about in studies a lot. You see him a lot in Jasher with the wars and stuff like that. The battle of Shechem, with his brothers over their sister and stuff like that. And then we're gonna go into Jasher 56, but Yashar 56, Yashar 56. That right there pretty much broke down everything. Dealing with the son of Esau, or grandson of Esau, one of the two, but still a son. That's how these things go in culture. Mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, pretty much how it goes. So over time, through translations like Germanic and Latin and Hebrew, Greek, Roman, Greco-Roman, Anglo-Saxon, things of that nature, things get translated off of the same Hebraic character base. So that kind of helps the no about things so much. As long as you understand character base, as we're out here walking around after we part ways from the campfire, we got to relate these things. So it's great to be able to break things down and to be able to hear things to break things down, like Naphtali. You got to do a whole lot of Naphtali out here. It's going to be another inside joke. You get your Naphtali on today? Oh, praises. And this one, the vibes are very chill. The vibes are very chill. Like, everything is, praise y'all, perfectly put together. With this little gizmo I was talking about earlier. It was like a cup holder tray that when I was over the road, it was very, 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 very handy. But I didn't get a chance to use it. I kept thinking about it and didn't get to use it. But this thing, it looks so cool. Like, I like little gizmos and gadgets. You know how we men are. We get older, just want different toys, different projects. Give me a screwdriver and a ratchet and a hammer, and some space to, roll around and fall asleep under the vehicle on. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. For those frustrating times, but yeah, perfectly everybody been great. Big Bruto over there just sharing stuff, and then he'll pop back on and we're gonna play a song and hop right on in. After that first song, we'll pray and hop right on in this thing with the Bible, Apocrypha, and notes.
Yes, sir. Here we go. Salakia. Let me snap.
All divine timing, sir. All divine timing. That's it. I'm learning how to be more comfortable speaking, or just letting it flow more so, and not being worried about the filter that's already there. I'll say that. Put it that way. All praises.
I think I got it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know who I am.
I thought it was playing all the time. Is it playing?
I know who I am.
Okay, there we go. All right. Okay.
I know who I am. I know who I am. I know bloodline of Jacob, of royal nature, returning the righteous, fleeing from Satan, climbing that ladder, the kingdom we taking. My mama Leah, his mama Rachel, my family, bloodline of greatness. Ain't that we know who we are, they can't take this. We only see God, but Yahweh his place. Finding that secret, they found where that place is. Get on that road and go teach every place. Jacob is you with the blessing, just face it. Identity, every no hope in some cases. Strangers gon' build up our walls when they waste. Children gon' come, they gon' see what they face. Kicked out the land, we got sent to the basement. Promises yours, can't nobody break of the rain, they gon' taste it. I know who I am. 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 I know shit in the crowd. All by that blue, we don't finally rise. My brother, my sister, no more evil eye. When loving your neighbor, it start up inside. We know who we are, so this love we gon' hide. John chapter 15, the verse number 9. He cover a multitude, put down your pride. Of my God teaching, we walk it up out. They say we can't get it, the devil alive. Back to the land, it ain't up in the sky. The wilderness coming, that cloud won't ride. For this head is coming, the sheep on the side. The wheat in the barn and the tears in the fly. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Judah, David, the bloodline awakened, we finally alive. Bloodline awakened, we finally alive. I know who I am. 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 I know who I am.
I'm on. So this one right here, Naphtali. As I started out, we're going to be in the Bible, portion of the scroll, on one scroll. We're going to pull out the Bible, go to the Apocrypha, and walk around, walk back to the campfire, fam. Great to see all y'all in here. Yeah, this one I was saying earlier, it's one of my favorite ones. One of those ones I got to sit and marinate on, for surely. And then one of those things, when you're reading through the scroll, and you get to a point sometimes where, because it don't recall all the time, like some like it's seen portrayed sometimes. Let's take those rocks out of my hand, like it's seen portrayed sometimes. But this is one of the ones. That's why I say it's my favorite, because I got to deep dive and it excites me. Not that I know everything, but some things, you see different each time you read over, and this is one of those times. But we're gonna start, because I'm excited about starting, so we're gonna go right to prayer. Abba Yah, we come before you to say Todah for another Barak Shabbat, a time to rest with you and to rest in your word and to really see what else you have. Like we always say, it gets deeper. We just barely scratched the surface, even with this, as it's applied and as it's reinstated. Something that was already stated and left for us, but is reinstated now as we search these things and search through these stones and crystals and realizing how these things were made for representations and reminders, not to be worshipped, but the worshiping of things are meant to throw people off. And we see that now too, as we're gripping things back and taking things back in culture, in a culture perspective, even as it's translated or seen or talked about, knowing where it comes from altogether. To die for even seeing as we were meditating earlier, the names of how from Adam, his sons, all the way through carried a message, but now also even Yaakov and his sons carry a message in guidelines. The Malachai Sadak, how that was a guideline, is a guideline. Yahashua HaMashacheh, not taking anything away from that, but seeing it as a whole, seeing it as a familiar thing, as it should be, as an order. Not in specific one place, one pulpit, but wherever we go, being the silent speakers and preachers that you have us to be. To die again, and as we get into this message, to die for being in your ear, and to die for making it a distracted, free place for us to sit down and meditate in your word. Hashem Yahava, Hashem Yahashpai, Hashem Ravak HaKodash, Aman, Aman, and Aman. All right, so let's go to Naphtali. We're going to get nafty. nifty with the Naphtali, right? So, Naphtali. all praises to the Abba. Naphtali. Man, this dude, it excited me because he's one of the ones that's not really talked about in many studies like we talked about earlier. And there's a reason for that. It's a message behind that. It's a message behind the message. Naphtali. We're going to talk about what we're going to touch on today. So Naphtali, his mother birthed, we're talking about son of Bilhah, right? Balha, right? We went from the order of Reuben, Ravban, how that was a place of the trance of nature being a thing that affected him, to the waters that he saw things in affecting his visions, which messed it up in digestion. Then we go to Simeon, Sama'an, the seed planted in a certain place through the flesh, but he had a struggle with a hardened heart, right? Then we get to Levi, Levi, how the righteous direction nails us to a place in the image with Yah's laws, how we talked about before, not something that can be taken away, but sapphire as well, how he has the sapphire now instead of Dan, right? But we get there in a second. We went from Levi to Judah after that, Yahavada, how you have the righteous direction of the Father through a process of the Holy Spirit, the Alav Che, right? And that's a place where you're asking a question, you're asking for healing, understanding. And we looked at Adah, right? The asking for her sons, how the representation of her two sons were a place of where they started the nomadic way of dwelling places and instruments and tools in that place of Yahavada. Yahavada, also the emerald being outside the rainbow. We read about in Revelation, I believe chapter 4, right? And how that was a reflection of Yahavada, how behind the emerald, how we see everything that's green. It represents love. 70% of the world is green, etc., right? How that goes from that into, let's see, Dan, right? Don, right? From last week. And we talked about how Dan is represented by the sapphire in Exodus 28, but Dan was taken away, which means taken away not judgment, but your view of your own judgment. Remember how we talked about Rachel says, I have been judged when Dan comes down, right? Yeah, say it like that. Salah on that. But going from that to being the door, the righteous direction, to maturity or perfection, in a way of perfection, to see the view of what perfection really is and what it entails. And that requires a one door that Yahweh gave us not to go through our own judgment, right? Not taking away judgment, right? We can't say no judgment because judgment's here. We have the book of Judges, right? So not taking away judgment at all, but our own view. Because why did you take that judgment and put it into your hands, Rachel? You know that wasn't about you. We went into that a little bit too, but now we went from there. This is the message I was talking about from Adam's sons, but now to Jacob's sons, because this is a 12 step guideline of how to act, right? Now we go to Naphtali, how to carry that message after you realize the one door that you don't go through. After you realize taking away your own judgment, now you can see the righteous judgment. Now we're at the place where we're carrying out the proper message. Now this is a view of how these things connect. There are many different aspects, many different insights on this, but we're just going with this view, not one view overall, but one Yahweh, one nailing in place of the Holy Spirit as she speaks overall, right? That's what we're doing. Also, I would say, come on up, because the Spirit moves in different ways. Not one person to end all be all of anything, but Yahweh is the all in all, right? But now we're seeing the message in that of Naphtali. Now going back to Naphtali, we're going to break down the character a little bit, then we're going to go through a little introduction. So we got, like we do the mathematics in a way, I guess. Ain't no math gonna prove character wrong. I like saying that. I heard that, I was like, that's lit. Ain't no mathematics that could prove character wrong. But in this way of viewing, we have we're right here on the post too. Naphtali, and under that, this is the equation I'm talking about right there. N or Nivan, maturity or perfection. In the way of going towards maturity or perfection, we have Alav Peh. Now Peh is depicted as a mouth, spoken, right? Speaking. A place, and that's beside Allah, which is source. So a word that goes out that shall not be returned void. We could throw that in there. There's a point where it starts there. And then from there, from hearing that thing, going to a place of where you hear something, going through a struggle, going through a war, because oftentimes Naphtali is sent with a message in war. There has to be some type of confrontation, some type of digestion, some type of friction, right? And from AP we go to Allah of Khay. We learn that from Yahavada, talking about Allah of Khay is a healing sense, right? We learned that from my sisters, the Crystal and Shantae too. Put an input on that. As a whole, put an input together. Not one source overall, but many people have many input. That's why it's great to have righteous counsel. It should stop there, i.e. Dan, right? But Allah of Khay, we got that after getting what was supposed to be heard, the thing that's supposed to be given to us to carry, right? The thing that's supposed to be brought to the campfire to talk about even, you know? Then we go that to Allah of Khay, and then in that place of healing of the question, you get to a place of the Allah of Tav. Allah of Tav is also et, toward. Is represented by and, A-N-D, in the Bible or in the scroll, different parts of the scroll. Allah of Tav is towards, it's and. Towards what? A righteous direction. So now, and then a righteous direction, Allah of Lamad, that's after AT, you got AL, then you got AY, you take that back to the image. So now we're going to put all that together. So on your way to maturity or perfection or learning something or seeing something you're supposed to see in a moment, right? You hear from Abba what you're supposed to hear. You hear from what you see what you're supposed to hear. You go to a source. You go to a place of war. There's things are spoken through action. Things are spoken through sight. Things are spoken through touch. You know, things of that nature. So the specificities of that goes deep. So always keep an open mind to that, right? It's not just one specific point, but we could take that and kind of break it down into breadcrumbs, right? And then we go from that place to a place of working with the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit helps you figure out the digestion after you get that AP, after you get that voice, that thing, right? You go to the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit takes you to the point, or takes you to the top, takes you to the crossroads, takes you to the place where it digests, so that way you're able to see the direction you're supposed to go with. That's the point of the top, to see the direction, to have a point, to have a mark. Even with Cain, remember he was marked in Genesis or Yashar, marked because Yahweh never forgets his, right? What happened after that? Until you see in Jasher where his own family ended up taking him out. But between that, what was really talked about, right? Cain probably went through a lot of things, always protected. Now, an example, yes, but an example of potential, right? Or potential in example. We could throw that in the AP too, potential. We could throw that in there, talking about how things translate over many different aspects, right? From Greek, Latin, Germanic, all that stuff we were talking about earlier, Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-ish, English, all these things happen here. And then you get to the righteous direction, and you could take that back to the AY, right? The in-between thing. We were talking about buying, when we were talking about, what was that? That might have been Levi. Why even talking about Levi? I see the picture. Not really sure which one, because that was one that we were led to through study. That's what kind of started this whole equation concept. But yeah, that's Naphtali. So keeping that in mind, right? Let's go through a little introduction. Naphtali was birthed by his mother. His mother was actually on the knees of Rachel. We'll read that in the Testament of Naphtali. His mother birthed on the knees of Rachel, because back in the day, the concept was, or the recommended thing was to squat when you give birth. So on that, and then Naphtali was born on the lap of Rachel. We'll read that as well. Actually, that Hezekiah song, we were talking about Hezekiah earlier. On my knees, y'all show me the way. That song, he drops that in there, not saying that Naphtali is the way, but is. You know what I'm saying? Why we had to be open. Shabbat Shalom, Sister Sherry, great to see you. Great to see you. Why we had to be open and see different things, right? To see the whole concept. But on my knees, y'all showed me the way. That resonated with me on that. We'll dive in that more, right? Not replacing your hashfire at all, but we'll dive into that more. Also, from that, also what was seen was, but in carrying the message properly, it is proper to Naphtali. Carrying the message improperly can lead that person to sin. How is that? Because carrying the message improperly at the wrong time, not waiting, it could rattle the brain of a person through the loins, right? We'll see how the digestion process starts in the Testament of Naphtali from the head down. Basically, it made me think about a created character video game, right? You really go from the facial feature first before you get to the clothes and stuff like that. The head connects to the neck. The neck is the body, right? But yeah, you could rattle a person's brain if you give the message improperly, and it could throw off the loins. Throwing off the loins could give their body a thing of food poisoning. Though the body can fight it, it still can mess up the process. It can make them be like, oh, I'm not even gonna eat that food no more. You know what I mean? I'm not even gonna go to that restaurant. Last time that happened, because we are chefs in Yahweh's kitchen, right? We got to serve up to the palate of others. They're like, yo, last time I tasted that, right? We got to be careful of that. So this requires spiritual independence. Spiritual independence is the ability to sit and dwell in the love of silence, knowing when to be silent. Silent isn't always required, but silent is the start of everything. Salah, right? We go both ways with that. This is why I got excited, because it edified me in a lot of ways, in my walk, in my talk, in my stance, even talking about this, relaying the message in a calm and pure way. So that way, what I was led to see is actually giving off the same way. So that way, we could walk through this thing again together, because it had me in the room just like, yo, yeah, like, are you for real? Like this is cool. Well, let's keep going. So spiritual independence is the ability to sit and dwell in the love of silence. But also, like we were talking about before, it's always through strife, right? This is where things come. This is where we find things. It's not necessarily a negative thing of strife, but it's still a thing of one thing coming against another, one thing rubbing up against another, one mindset, as we all are built different. Not even going against directly another, just a question, an inquiry, Allah, hey, right? Trying to figure out something, you know what I mean? And it does always come with strife. Now, sometimes saying always can make a person, like giving this message properly, right? Giving it improperly could be like saying always all the time. Because always makes a person think, oh, you just know it all. No, but in all ways, there is a sense of strife, because everything moves in friction. The wind blows against water. The wind blows against ground. The wind makes everything go round. So there has to be a point of friction. In the beginning, Yahweh spoke to something. There had to be a reaction, right? So when we say in always, we're saying in all ways. You know what I'm saying? So it's not saying in one specific, one exact way, but in all ways you could see a bit of this strife, like in Saul and David. But through betrayal of many different whatever sorts, it must be that, because it must come from someone close. Because if it doesn't, we're not going to care. It's not really going to stand out. Like I could walk down the street and somebody say, hey, you know, and I'm grateful for it. I'll say hey back. But it's not going to hit me like if I see my boy walking down the street and they say what's up. If they don't say what's up, it's going to make me feel some type of way, right? Even with Saul and David, Yehohanan being the middleman of giving that message back and forth, Yehohanan breaks down with all those nuns or navans in there too, right? So we can see that there's a message even in that. And Yehoshaphat, the Messiah, he even tasted much bitterness from the close ones, right? But not even bitterness in a way that it can't be drunk, and not like everybody thinks bitterness, everybody goes to Judas. No, but even a question that the disciples had for Yehoshaphat. He had to sit there. He had to Naphtali. He had to wait for the right way to say the message. Sometimes it's like you're not even going to understand. Or sometimes it's, how many times do I have to tell you? Right? Or sometimes it's, you will see in due time. Or you will deny me thrice. Right? You will deny the humility of a thing. Allah ba'ait gamal. Right? A place to get you here. Even at the point of salvation, there was bitterness that he tasted. Right? There has to be some type of a thing to lead him to saying Psalms 22. Right? Talking about why hast thou forsaken me? Not saying that Yahweh left him in that moment, but he's quoting the Psalms that the people should know. So that way it recollects and hits in their mind. Right? So there had to be a meditation, even though Yehoshaphat already knows, right? Because him being of the Father, in some sense, can't say he already knows. You know what I'm saying? So we got to make sure we're giving the message properly. So with knowing what we know, right? That was just an example. Knowing what we know, we could say, yeah, he already knew, but there's a place where there was a meditation. All right, how do I get these people to know that this is really what's going on? He quotes that, then they're like, oh man, hold on. This is what's going on. He's saying this. Oh, right? Then it registers. But there has to be a point of strife. So even at the point of salvation, we could take from that, you have the Naphtali, right? But at the height of battle, Naphtali was given a message, right? We'll see in Jasher. And that message was a righteous message in any sense, in any way. Naphtali, or the Naphthalim, are committed in the background. They're no pulpit preachers. So like the diamond that's represented by Naphtali, in Exodus chapter 28, because remember, we go in birthing order. We don't go in order of Rachel first, Leah first, then Bilhah, then Zilpah. No. We go in the order that these men were birthed, right? Because that's the order of what we could put together and see a message. If we take that out of order, we miss the message, right? But we can use it in the other orders and get different messages as well. They may resonate, right? So see how we can see this in many different ways. We have to be able to Naphtali, like deer. Many people see deer as an excite of a season, right? Those that know, they know. I have to be careful of saying many things on here. But there's an excitement even of that. But deer are very smart. They're sensitive to what's going on. You don't really see them, right? But if you see them, it's not for too long, right? It's a way to deliver the message, but they're always there in the background. Best believe we're moving around the roads and everything like that. They're still in the background. They still watch from the roads before they cross the street. They don't always do it the right way, right? Those that don't know, I found out the hard way one time, but like that's just the way it goes. But that's why Naphtali are compared to as deer, or the hind. Hind being a word it's a translation word. I believe Germanic when I was doing research. But we're gonna keep going. So like the diamond, it takes plenty of pressure from deep within the earth, deep within the going back and forth, the contracting, things of that nature. It takes a lot, just like the diamond. But the diamond reflects everything. A diamond can be seen as quote unquote clear, but it's reflective of every single color. Just depends on what's shown on it, right? There's a light to crystal ratio. There's a light to stone ratio, breaking away the stone. The diamond is always there, waiting to be revealed, but still keeping the same faith. But when it reflects light, let's use green for an example, because we love green for the earth, for the trees and the grass, okay? But we're going to choose green. We show green in the diamond reflects back green, but in a way that it should be reflected. So like Naphtali receives a message, carries the message on a full stomach, right? Even, quote unquote, but not getting cramps. You know, that's the sense of the message right there, reflecting it back in a way, carrying the message back properly, because everybody sees it and hears it differently. All right, so don't just lead with strife, but sometimes you gotta let people know and not let people know that you're cutting the ground to plant a seed real quick, you know? So just like the diamond, keeping structure without being seen, born of struggle, wrapped in silence, not gaining from exposure, but from stillness in faith. Naphtali, the Naphthalim, were secret warriors. So silence, again, is not neglect. In many situations, it's divine timing, allowing Yah to show you and how to sort things out to be able to deliver the message properly. This is Naphtali. Naphtali, again, not really being seen too much, but being in the background. Not moving around, but unforced. Not vanishing, but waits for timing. Like the deer. The deer also have feet to climb mountains in rough terrain, right? A lot of this came for the video I was watching too. Again, just ask me for it, I'll send it to you. That's all I really say on here, because I've been seeing a lot of crazy stuff being, but like many animals, deer have a spiritual meaning. Now a deer is agile. So we're thinking about carrying a message, right? Yes, for sure, must watch. So we're thinking about carrying a message. A deer is agile, quiet, and sensitive to surrounding, free from yoke and bondage, like a horse and bridle. That led me to Psalms 32, verse 9. You can flip that if you want, but I'm going to flip that real quick. I have it generally turned there. So a deer is free from yoke and bondage. So ability to move when seen to move. So in Psalms 32 verse 9, it says, "Be ye not as the horse, or as the mule, which have no understanding, whose mouth must be held in with brit." One second. Whose mouth must be held in with bit and bridle, lest they come near unto thee. Right? So yeah, so so you don't have a problem digesting the little things, right? And let me know if the noise is too much in the background. But yeah, basically, don't be like we're gonna read that back over. So Psalm 32 verse 9, it says, "Be ye not as the horse," right? The horse that likes to run and trample and things like that, or as the mule, but thinking about what holds them together, being bound by bit and bridle, or bridle, right? Which have no understanding, whose mouths must be held in with bit and bridle, or bridle, lest they come near unto thee, right? Unless that comes onto you. So you're going to miscarry or carry wrong. You're not going to carry the message right? So we're going to keep going with that. They have the ability to escape invisible forms of oppression and fallen spirits, right? They're sensitive to sound. Speak at things that bring brilliance. This is Naphtali. They are a branch or a guideline, or some people say tribes, of prophetic gifts. A deer is also a clean animal, thinking about Naphtali. Acceptable in Yahweh, demanded and commanded, even willing if found, right? It takes a big thing to try to find a deer, right? It takes a big thing to try to I don't want to say that word, but y'all see what I'm getting to. It takes a big thing to find one. You're not just going to walk in the woods and say, "Oh, a deer," all the time, right? They're not silenced, right? But they're in a place of preparation and ready to leave from that place to speak at any moment. Held back by Yah or Yahweh until they hear him release them to speak. Having the ability to appear at the right time in strategic places. This is the spiritual declaration from Yahweh to Naphtali. Right after his brother, in whatever timing that took, but after his brother being born. So after seeing the unrighteous direction, that one door of judgment not to go through, after that comes Naphtali. The ability to see the message, carry the message to where it needs to go. I'm on. So now let's walk through, knowing about Naphtali a little bit. We're going to walk through from Genesis, about Ashayat, and we're going to go through a few scriptures, right? We're going to see also how Naphtali is administrative later on too. That's in, where was that? Did I put that up there? Judges? No, I did not. But that's in Judges. Let's see. No, in 1 Kings 4. We're going to go there too. Today about 1 Kings 4. I did write that down. So administrative. And I wrote that, it kind of resonated to me in this sense. So adding ministry, which is turning nouns to adjectives. IVE on the end of a word. It's describing, turning a noun into an adjective. Taking a thing and bringing it in a way that's able to be described through others. And right now I'm being surrounded by vehicles. So let me go ahead and, one second. Let me mute this. Start this car up, put the AC on so that way it's not heard like that. So one second, let me mute this. One sec. All right, I'm on. Y'all, I'm back. Praise y'all. I'm back in action. Y'all can still hear me? Y'all can still hear me good? I'm on. So, let's keep on going. I'm assuming y'all can. So, we're going to go from Genesis, and we're going to talk about Naphtali. We see that Naphtali is administrative. That AC feels great, too. Naphtali is administrative. Administrative, breaking down, we'll see in 1 Kings how he was chosen from Tada Ravak has been moving us right back in from when she puts us in a comfortable situation. Sometimes we be fighting it. Like I can take that. You see, it's Naphtali really helped me catch things too, right? No. You want tweaking. But Naphtali, we'll see in 1 Kings chapter 4 how it talks about Solomon and his righteous counsel. So in his righteous counsel, he also chose the Naphtali, right? There's a reason for that. We're also seeing there Zadok, Malachi Zadok. He chose son of the order, right? We talked about Malachi Zadok we're going to go to Genesis, actually. What's that first one? About Isaiah 49:21. We're going there as I'm talking. So go ahead and flip to Genesis 49:21. But yeah, we saw that Zadok, Malachi Zadok, the order of Malachi Zadok is where Abraham, that situation with Lot, how he went to people and needed people to help him rescue his nephew, right? And those are the people in the same order, just like Raval, who Moses went to get the sapphire staff. We'll also read through Deuteronomy and see the speaking of the sapphire onto the sons of Jacob, or the tribes of Jacob, the branches of Jacob, the guidelines of Jacob, of Jacob, right? But yeah, seeing how all these things come out and pop out even more as I was searching for Naphtali, searching in the quiet places to find the way of Naphtali, right? So we had to keep all that in mind too. Right, so let's go to Genesis 49:21. Excuse me, and we're gonna start there. I didn't even flip there myself. Genesis 49:21. We're gonna go start from there. We're gonna walk back through. Not exactly, but pretty much where Yah led me through on this whole concept. I don't think this shouldn't be vibrating. All right, so 49:21, Genesis 49:21. Yes, and it says, Naphtali is a hind let loose. He giveth goodly or righteous words, right? So we just talked about, that's why we went through the breakdown to get a foundation. So as we're reading things, it'll pop up and register, right? So we went to Genesis 49:21. It says, Naphtali, 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 right? Or Naphtali, Naphtali, as we like to say, as I like to say, is a hind let loose. A hind translated to deer. Also a, what you call it? I believe a female deer, I believe, right? There's a certain deer, but also a deer that's left from their mother. That's probably it. Right, I didn't really dive too deep in on that. Try to stay with the basis of it, the original of it, but around that area. So that's why that's hind. Hind, long story short, is a translation of deer, right? And let loose. So, as in a deer taking off at the right time with the right correct message. So we see that there. He giveth righteous words in this place of receiving what it is that you're supposed to hear, receiving the situation, right? Or receiving the words that should not return void. You come back with righteous words at the AY, the inner Naphtali, right? Bringing it back to the image, bringing it back to one, bringing it back to that in-between place that holds everything together, right? No longer nursing deer. Thank you, cuz I appreciate you. No longer nursing deer. So yeah, being released from there, right? So, and also how we get the Naphtali, to break that down into Hebrew characters to see really what you're going through. That first letter, Naf, N, right? Navan, NVN, NUN, seen in Psalms 119, but every U was a V. We're not gonna get too deep into that. You'll find that if you keep going, glad to go that deep. But you got Nun, we got Pe, we got He, we got Tav, and we got Lamed, and we have, every time we see an I, it's AY of Ayan, 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 I-A-N. We see sometimes we'll see in Psalms 119 AYIN. But you see that Y every time it's an AY, right? So Naphtali, a hind let loose, he giveth righteous words. That's in Genesis. So now let's go to Deuteronomy, I believe. Okay, let's walk to Deuteronomy 33. So in Deuteronomy 33, as we're all turning there, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. All right, Deuteronomy 33. This is the point where Moses, and why I was led to say the righteous staff or the sapphire of Moses speaks, because remember, sapphire was a stone, is a stone that, if you read in Exodus 28, lines up with Dan. But again, Dan being taken out, as we see in Revelation 7, taken out of the sealed, of the mindset of the way we should be taking these things as we're going patriarchal, as we're seeing the nature of the natural to see the supernatural. That's the terminology we're going to use for that. It can be broken down in many other ways, but a way that I was shown through Sis Shantae, that it's the natural, looking at the natural to see the supernatural. That's what resonates with me and helps me remember how to deliver the message properly, right? But here Moses is giving the blessing over Israel and the sons and the tribes, right? So the sapphire is speaking. He's hearing the one that was able to see Yahweh and having a glow of seeing, right? Many others just saw the feet, saw the throne, but the sapphire, again, from Ezekiel, Revelation, all those things. We went into sapphire already, so we're not going to jump all the way back in there. But the sapphire of Moses, or the righteous mindset of Moses, the Levitical priesthood of Moses, right? This is what's speaking right now. And honestly, going through, I was looking at it, I was like, man, we could have just, I was like, man, this would have been great. I'm saying this properly. This would have been great to put in earlier going through. But we'll read through a little bit of what we went through earlier with the sons of Jacob, right? So Moses says in Deuteronomy 33, we're going to go to verse 6. It says, let Reuben live, right? It says, let Reuben live and not go on from here. And let not his men be few. So right there we see we're talking about the trance of nature, remember? So live through that. Let Reuben figure out how to properly digest these things, because it's going to prevent a hardened heart. That's how we get to Simeon, right? And let's see, Judah, verse 7, and the blessing of Judah, Yehovah. Remember we talked about that whole process. It says, and he said, hear Yehovah, the voice of Judah, right? After that in-between place, the learning of Yada, not really praise, but an entering course of things, right? Hear the voice from that and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him to carry all these things, and be thou and help to him from his enemies. So from going the wrong way, to preventing from going the wrong way, right? We see that for Judah. Verse 8, Levi. It says, he said, let thy Thummim and Urim. That's like your right and your light in a way, right? So the translation that helped me see this is that. But let your yin and yang, some people say, let your left hand and right hand, let your left foot and right foot, let your, whatever helps you figure these things out, your balance, you being the weight in the middle, because it takes three things. Three in humility, Guy Maul, it takes three things to balance. You need a thing, you need a pressure, and you need a reader of the pressure, right? You need the Father, you need the Son, you need the Holy Spirit. You need the Father, you need the Word, you need the way, right? That could go many different things, many different ways. But yeah, we see that in Levi. But I was going to Naphtali. So let's go to Naphtali. 33, verse 23. So it says, and of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full with the blessing of Yahweh, possess thou the west and the south. So we think about, as we know the stories and the lineup of everything. So the whole story of the scroll, let's zoom out. Let's get a bird's eye view. So remember when they split the kingdom, right? The kingdom was split. Who was in the southern kingdom, right? We have Levi, Judah, right? So also, eyes to the east, right? The sun rises in the east, sets in the west. The wild, wild west, as they say, right? A lot of things go on in the west. So take things between this place of the west and the south, between where the sun even sets, right? Follow the sun from where it rises to where it sets, from the whole day, taking these things back and forth, from the west to the south, from the south to the north, back and forth, bringing it back to the image, that AY on the end of Naphtali, right? Bringing that back and forth. We can see that there. So now that we see it breaking down, the foundation of Naphtali, we can see really that Naphtali is heavy in the scripts. Naphtali isn't a one that was looked over, really, like many may think. Naphtali is one that's a silent ninja, because not sure if I can say that one, but he's always in the background. So think about, now I see even more so why deer is a thing that was portrayed in this, because in the background, like that picture, you see but quick, elevating, swift, sensitive to nature, right? Carrying a blessing. Even where they reside as family, it's hard to see a den where deers live. You're not really gonna find one because it's in a secluded place. But when they leave out, you'll see them. But they leave out at divine time, and there's seasons where they stay in. So there's a season where things happen in the woods with deer. Every month that ends in the ER. So September, October, November, December, right? That is a season where things happen in the woods with deer, right? So those that know, come from a lot of southern raising. So I see these things and know these things. But there's a certain season where obviously they know this. They catch on to these things. And they move accordingly. But you're not really going to find where they dwell at. But you know that they dwell in a place that's protected because you see them. You see, so you can see how everything correlates, and you can see how the translation or the translating, you can see that in even more in deer, as we know nature, as we see nature, having the mindset of the garden. You know, again, as we get this thing in our mind, as we're giving this out and relaying the message, the garden necessary to be a mindset because of the reality of it. Everything's a garden. There's thicker parts and there's thinner parts. There's flowers, there's vines, there's thorns, there's thistles. So it just depends on where you're at. But also remembering that in the wilderness is where Yah is with you. Even closest in a sense. Because that's the place of that AP in Naphtali. Right? So we can see again in Naphtali. Naphtali is how to carry. So when I said earlier, on my knees, Yah showed me the way, talking about the song from Bro, I was saying that in a way because, or the way I was led to see it resonate was because there's a way of carrying things. Yahashvi, the way given with the Holy Spirit. Yahashvi, leaving the Holy Spirit. The Ravak HaKodash, right? Not replacing or trying to belittle anything like that. That's blasphemy. That's crazy work. We're not even going to go close to that. But saying in a way, because the Messiah still knew of these ways. He put them together. You see, so it's like, put them together in his mind. That's how he walked. He walked with all these things being in proper setting. Just like there's a meaning behind Adam's sons in line and lineage, there's a meaning behind Jacob's sons in line and lineage in birthing order. So if one's in birthing order, I didn't even see that before. So if one's in birthing order talked about all the time, why would they change up the birthing order of the sons of Jacob? You know, maybe to throw some things off. Now, that's not to accuse the brethren, but it's a defensive mindset strategy. It's a Naphtali, right? You got to understand these things and see these things, the invisible oppressive threats. You got to be able to see these things in order to move correctly. This is the things that resonated with me, you know, and it's, man. So yeah, we're going to go back and forth for Deuteronomy 33 for sure. We're going to add that in too. And we're going to get to the stones of Reuben and Simeon too. Also, I have it written down and stuff, but this isn't, maybe it's a wrap-up thing when we get to the end of this. We'll see, but later for that, right? So let's keep on walking. So we went from, now let's go to, there's kind of an order that y'all had me set through. Yeah, let's go to 1 Kings chapter 4. All right, we're kind of going order-ish with it, you know. Let's go to 1 Kings chapter 4. Now, 1 Kings chapter 4, now that we know about Naphtali, the way to carry the message out, so we'll reiterate that one more time. To N equals AP, AH, AT, AL. The outside things of maturity headed towards perfection equals the Alav Pe and the Alav Yad, or the words not returning void, the situation not returning void, not being able to not see a situation, because the one biggest sin is seeing things void. There's always a purpose in everything. Me and Big Bruder were talking about the birds earlier today. You know, we speak things, and so take this with a grain of salt, but with the literal grain, right? We take things and we speak things. We speak things, we change atmosphere. We change atmosphere, we change the pressure. So when the truth comes in the room, everybody know, right? So with that, knowing of everything, there's a way to carry things out, right? I'm gonna leave that rest of that breadcrumb right there. So we go to 1 Kings chapter 4. 1 Kings chapter 4. And right here, that should have been enough time to get there. Right here is a place where, no, let's go back. Let's finish that off. So none equals an APAY, right? Decency and order, administrative. So, and sometimes, right, even with that. So y'all know what happened there. I just completely lost my spot, right? But this is a testimony in action. Completely lost my spot, right? Because of one little thing. But if you go to where you're supposed to go, it'll lead you right back to where you're supposed to be in delivering the message, because you didn't lose the message source. There's just a misstep sometimes in the message. But let's go back to the Navan, right? None. We at the campfire. We ain't preaching to nobody. We be talking amongst each other. None, right? Navan. In the way of perfection, and maturity heading to perfection, you have the AP and the AY. So there's a place where the words do not return void, and there's a place where it takes back and becomes the image. It becomes the place and the setting. In between that, we have the working of the Holy Spirit, right? We have a place of where we're asking a question for healing. And from that place, there's an AT, there's an Alav Tav, there's an and, there's a toward. At that place, you get the mark. You get to find out where you should go on the crossroad. You know, on some cartoons, you'll see, you get to the crossroads, like, which direction would you take? And you take the direction, and it won't be the right one, but eventually you'll see. But if you go through this Naphtali, if you Naphtali right, you'll be able to see there exactly where to go to the AL, the Alav Lamad, the Allah Chayam. Remember, backwards or flip that would be La'at Taba, the wrong way to go about things. And that leads you to the image, seeing the in-between thing, seeing the righteous direction, seeing the in-between, seeing the image that you're supposed to be and carry and stuff like that. That's Naphtali. So now we go to 1 Kings chapter 4. We're going to go through this chapter a little bit. The first few verses till we get to verse 15. Right here it talks about Solomon's wisdom. So again, talking about how the Messiah knew how to Naphtali, obviously, right, to handle these things correctly. We'll see that it's necessary for wisdom. So when Moses spoke about this for Naphtali, going from the west to the south, in the way we're viewing things, right? But then also before that, how it talks about, no, after that. No. All together. We'll say all together, because jumping around is jumping up the mind a little bit. But all together, this is a place where Naphtali is administrative, adding to the ministry of a thing, turning the noun into an adjective, right? So chapter 4 of 1 Kings, we talk about Solomon's wisdom. We go to verse 2 first. We're going to walk this through in order. So in verse 2, it talks about Azariah, the son of Zadok, the priest. So again, we'll see Malachi Zadok, right? So we see right there, Zadok, the order, the original order is important here in wisdom. Solomon's, in this sense, wisdom, right? We jump down to verse 5. Azariah, the son of Nathan, right? This is believed to be of Nathan the prophet, or Nathan the seer, because there was a Gad the seer and a Nathan the prophet, or Nathan the seer, surrounding David and helping him interpret things and hear things in the right ways and things like that. That's also necessary in here. Nathan, a principal officer, right? Salah, and the king's friend. And we jump down to verse 7, and it says, and Solomon had 12 officers over all of Israel, which provided victuals, or provisions, or held basically a governor role for the king and his household. Each man his month in the year made provision. So in order, these things happened, right? And this is where Naphtali comes in. So let's jump down to verse 15. Verse 15, it says Ahimaaz, right? Or Ahai Maaz, right? Was in Naphtali. He also took Basmath, the daughter of Solomon, to wife. So even in that importance, and you read through this whole thing, and these whole list of names, it doesn't really talk about Solomon having his daughter marry one. That resonates. That you have to think about that and see that. It's very important of Naphtali. And I didn't even see this before. Honestly, like 1 Kings goes through a lot of things. And you'll see even now, more so just like me, Solomon's daughter. Solomon's like, hey, my daughter needs to wife one that knows how to speak, one that knows how to hold ground, one that isn't fazed by too much but can see things in advance, one that's not going to do too much, when it comes to my daughter, right? One that's going to sit here and actually hear and be able to get what needs to be said, maybe to speak to the people. This is very important, right? This is very important, but also to see that here was kind of cool, very cool. We ain't gonna say kinda, ain't no kinda to it. But now let's go to even. We might go to Testament and Nap. No, we're gonna go to Jasher 56. Jasher 56. We're gonna walk there, right? We're gonna walk there. So as you're flipping to Jasher 56, let's get another little quick summary. So Naphtali heard the message, took off, and we'll see this in Jasher 2, Jasher 56. Naphtali heard the message and took off, leaping, abasing, and abounding, on a full stomach, but had no cramps, like we were talking about earlier. And he had time not only to hear, but to chew it over, so he can not only deliver, but continue to hear. So none of it comes from a hurt place. So none of the war has been seen, but will be understood. And it won't taint it either way. Speaking, hearing, or relaying, or returning the message, while leaping and abounding, rolling, shaking up, making digestion proper. So Naphtali metaphorically receiving a word in Jasher 56. Yashar 56, receiving a word, running with this word, but this word also must be in proper form. Like playing telephone, you can't really jumble up the message. It must be given in the proper way. You must be able to get the right thing to bring back, because if you don't, it'll cause an even greater war. And this is the prelude to Jasher Yashar 56. So let's go to Jasher 56. Jasher 56. As we walk this thing out, we're going to go to verse 53. Jasher 56, verse 53. And right here, going back more into Naphtali and how to carry the message properly, seeing now after Dan, after realizing that one door we're not supposed to go through, and that's that door of our own fleshly judgment. Like Rachel said when he was born, Dan was born, I've been judged. But why are you putting that judgment on yourself, Rachel? Like, it's for a reason, right? We're not saying like, oh, well, why are you tripping? It's for a reason, so we can see this lesson. But back to that, why would you bring that judgment onto yourself? That's not necessary. So now taking that away, now that we see the righteous judgment, now we got to figure out how to take this righteous judgment and deliver it properly. This is how we get the Naphtali. So again, seeing the order and the sequence of how Adam's sons went in the birth, we're doing the same thing with Jacob and his sons, right? Because this is another major point in the scroll. You know, there are sons of Adam. Adam even portraying the righteous role of still continuing to speak and give the word, and through his experience, even outside of the garden, even to the point where the two that buried him were the two that helped us, and one birthed the one that would help us through the flood. So you see how it all connects either way. Not throwing away Abraham's bosom at all either. All this necessary, but we're just at the patriarchal moments of the 12 patriarchs, of the sons of Jacob. But now we should have had enough time to reach Jasher 56. My apologies. Jasher 56, not too far off. Jasher 56, verse 53. We're going to start there, right? Jasher 56, verse 53. And it states, that was so weird. Oh, man. And Esau answered saying, so this is the part where Esau and the sons of Jacob are having a disagreement, right? Jacob, moving on before this point, talking to Esau, right? It says, and Esau answered saying, you speak falsely and utter lies. This is the situation. This is the place where the Aleph Pei is found, right? It says, you speak falsely and utter lies, for I did not sell anything belonging to me in all this land, as you say, neither did my brother Jacob buy all belonging to me in this land. So he's calling them a liar, right? Verse 54, and Esau spoke these things in order to deceive Joseph, or deceive the one always playing in the proper place with his words. That's what his name breaks down to in character. With his words, for Esau knew that Joseph, or Yahasav, was not present in those days when Esau sold all belonging to him in the land of Canaan, to Jacob, And Joseph said to Esau, surely my father inserted these things with you in the record of purchase because he knew better, right? Joseph knew better than that, naturally, and testified to the record with witness. And behold, it is with us in Kemet, or Egypt. And Esau answered, saying to him, bring the record. All that you will find in the record, so will we do. So Joseph, being the one always playing in the proper place, which his name breaks down to, called to his brother who? Naphtali. You see, so like Naphtali right there is, again, the one in a very heated situation. We'll keep reading. We're going to finish it out, the chapter. But in a very heated situation, Naphtali. Naphtali knowing that you can't be fazed by what's going on. You know, you can't be shaken up. You can't be shell-shocked, right? You can't be slow. You got to be quick. You got to be able to get through the wilderness. You got to be able to get there and back with swiftness and quickness, not forgetting a single part of the message, but to be able to look in the right specific place. Again, you can also see, looking at the natural, to see the supernatural. Naphtali also the one that probably knew where it was. So Naphtali having a bit of sapphire in him too, right? Naphtali being a prophetic line, a prophetic quote-unquote tribe or branch, a branch of prophetic gifts, right? But also being responsible enough to see exactly where something was at. Joseph knew where it was at because being the one always planted in the proper place, knows where the thing is, planted in the proper place. But Naphtali, maybe one that was able to hold a secret, maybe one that was able to hold information like this to prevent something from being mistaken or misguided in that place, right? Well, let's keep reading. And he said, hasten quickly, do not linger, and now run to Kemet and bring all the records, all the ones that are necessary, right? The record of purchase, the sealed record, and the open record, and also the first records in which all the transactions of birthright are written. Let's walk back through that. We can slow on all that part. The record of purchase, the sealed record, the open record. So the point, the essence, and the revealing, and also the first records coming from the first place, or the AY, the image. You know, you could take these things and plug them in. Again, not being end all be all. Not saying, no, that's the only way to do it, and that better be the only way to, no, not saying any of that. But we could plug and play once we understand the words and stuff like that. As we're at the campfire, just walking through things that Yah led me to study through, that, you know, we all could talk about. Essentially, that's all this is. Let's continue that. And he said, fetch them. Verse 58, and you will bring them to us here, so that we may know from all the words of Esau and his sons which they spoke this day. So don't hold back anything. It's not going to hold back anything. This message is going to tell us everything we need to know. So metaphorically, we can see a lot in here. Not that these things didn't happen literally, but metaphorically, Yah works. So there's messages in the literal things that we see. That's the way it works. A way it works. So you gotta deliver the message properly. Saying the all the time might not resonate with some people, but a way it works. We know better. A way is the way. There's no other way. But you see, it's gotta be given properly, right? Verse 59. And Naphtali listened to the voice of Joseph, Yasaf, and he hastened and ran to go down to Egypt or Kemet. And Naphtali was lighter on foot than any of the stags that were on the wilderness, for he would go on ears of corn without crushing them. That's very descriptive. Like he would go on ears of corn without destructing them, without crushing them. Now we can see that as a way of him galloping across ears of corn. Possibly running through the cornfields. Literally running through the cornfields. Those stalks of corn have to bend. They're pretty sturdy, actually. Being around many of them all my life, I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all have been. They're pretty sturdy, right? Fast and agile, exactly. Being able to tiptoe across water like those Power Rangers or Oriental movies that I like to watch a lot. But it's very descriptive, just to give exactly what Shaddai was saying, fast and agile, right? Without crushing them. Verse 60, and when Esau saw that Naphtali had gone to fetch the records, he and his sons increased their resistance against the cave. They saw that, this is the time that it gets worse, right? Salah on that. And Esau and all his people rose up against Joseph, Yahusaf, and his brothers to battle. All the sons of Jacob and all the people of Kemet fought with Esau and his men. And the sons of Esau and his people were smitten before the sons of Jacob. And the sons of Jacob slew of Esau's people 40 men. 40, right? That's Ras, I believe. No, Mem. Actually, it represents the number 40. But it all connects. So yeah. But mom, right? M-A-M, M-E-M in Psalms 119. That represents the 40. So destroying this is how we can see the setup. Destroying the AY in Naphtali. Destroying the righteous direction that they thought that they had, right? Or, we can flip that around in many different ways. Destroying the bringing back to the image. That message that was given to them, destroying that part. So when Naphtali gets back, we can really naphtali the situation. We can Naphtali the situation. That AY on the end of Naphtali, we can bring that back. They're changing that point because that's the point of fixing and unfixing and destroying and bringing back together the proper way. So when Naphtali gets back, we can take this back to the 40 or talk about the 40, and this is why this had to happen. So we can see how that kind of correlates with what actually happened in real life. Let's keep on going. Verse 62, and Cushim, the son of Dan. Right? Shabbat Shalom, sis. What's going on, sis? So Cushim, the son of Dan, technically, the son of Yakar. So before we even keep going, what did you think about Dan, the son of Dan? So knowing Dan had a problem with judgment, there's probably a couple things that wasn't registering right or correctly to cause a misjudgment. Okay? So we can take that and look also on how his son, descriptively but more metaphorically, we see what comes from Dan, right? Comes from the essence of Dan, the one door you're not supposed to go through. What comes from this? So let's keep reading. That's what we'll see. That was led for me to see, vice versa. But he was about 100 cubits distance. Let's start back at verse 62. And Cushim, the son of Dan, the son of Don, the son of Jacob, was with Jacob's son all that time. Jacob's sons all that time. So Cushim was over there doing this whole thing going on. He was over there. But he was about 100 cubits distance from the place of battle. So sort of like how David or David was away from his brother type of thing. This is what resonated with me. So we could you see how all the stories kind of correlate in a way. Let's keep reading. For he remained with the children of Jacob's sons by Jacob's byre to guard it, right? And Cushim was mute and deaf. So there's a problem speaking and a problem hearing, because there was a righteous direction that shouldn't have been taken, or there was a righteous direction for righteousness, but there's a way that righteousness shows that shouldn't be taken, and that's the way of our own judgment. So we can see that there. But he still understood the voice of consternation among men, right? Or the being with a stern nation. He understood where they were coming from or standing where they were, because he's with the sons of Jacob. So he can still see what's going on, right? Verse 64, and he asked, saying, why do you not bury the dead? And what is this great consternation? And they answered him with the words of Esau and his sons. And he ran to Esau in the midst of battle and slew Esau with the sword and off his head. And it sprang to a distance. Esau fell among the people of the battle. And when Cushim did this thing, the sons of Jacob prevailed over the sons of Esau. And the sons of Jacob buried their father Jacob by force in the cave. And the sons of Esau beheld it. And Jacob was buried in Hebron, in the cave of Mount Pelach, which Abraham had bought from the sons of Heth for possession of a burial place. That's also previously in Jasher. And he was buried in very costly garments, and no king had such honor paid him as Joseph paid to his father at his moving from here. For he buried him with great honor, like to the burial of kings. And Joseph and his brothers made a mourning of 7 days for their father. Right? So we can see again, Naphtali just seems to disappear from the scenes. But did he? That's the story of Naphtali through all the script. It seems like he's just here and then disappears. But always comes back in the right time when it's being talked about a message, a place where you need to be, a way that you need to go, a way you need to carry something, the way you need to move, agile, swift, quick, with hooves or with feet that can climb mountains, rough terrain, gallop right through, stride right through, but not struggling with bit and bridle, things that cause you to not be able to chew things correctly, to bring it back to the image, to the AY, to Allah of Yahweh, the direction of source, which is the hand of the Father, which is the Yod, Yavad, seen as Y-A-U-D in Psalms 119. Also seen as Y-A-W-D, but it's Y-A-V-D, Yavad. That could keep breaking down even more and more. But yeah, you see this in a place every time Naphtali is mentioned, like we'll go to next in Matthew chapter 4. We'll go to the next. Matthew chapter 4, verse 12 through 20. And then we're going to clean it up with the testament of Naphtali. Then we're done with the Naphtali part. But seeing now even more so how Naphtali is a is a tribe full of prophetic gifts. Right? It's a branch full of prophetic gifts in a way. Silent, divine ones that are committed to the path of life. Committed to the workings of kingdom. Committed to everything going, but not needed to be mentioned. Not needing a pulpit to speak from. A pulpit isn't a bad thing to be from, but not needing that. But still always delivering the message, still always being in the proper place at the proper time. This tribe with this branch of sons and daughters, they were looked into very deeply. They were always considered, but never really having to be talked about. But still always maintaining the proper direction and the proper way. You know, this is Naphtali. These are the Naphtali. Alright, I'm on. So let's go to Matthew chapter 4 as we walk this thing on out. Walk this thing to a close. Yeah, Matthew chapter 4. All right, Micah, there you go. Matthew chapter 4, verse 12. And also, like in that video I was telling y'all about, that just ask me about, I'll send you. Because that video helped me out a lot. In the way to portray things and relay things and things of that nature. Matter of fact, I can cut this vehicle off now because gas is not cheap. Alright. Matthew chapter 4. And we're gonna go back to the Apocrypha. So Ravak was like, don't put that book in the back seat because you're not done with it yet. Matthew chapter 4, verse 12. Yeah, in that video, that's why I was talking about that. That way. Oh man. But verse 12, this is in that video, it was talking oh no, it's Gucci, it's clear. It's not even that, the shading moved over the vehicle and stuff like that. I was fine earlier. I just shut the doors because the people pull up and kind of chill and talk and stuff like that, and it's fine, but we doing something, so yeah. But chapter 4, this in the video it talked about on the place that I seen this from. Be careful about talking about other platforms apparently on here, but they were speaking on this as being a start of kingdom, a start of ministry with the Messiah, with Yehoshua, Hamashacheh. Many people still say Jesus the Christ. That's fine. There's more to it. There's a place to start from. But, that doesn't make me say, oh, yeah. You know what I mean? There's levels to this. We got to, like it says in Isaiah, the sheep are with the wolves, and there's things that got to be talked about, So, some people say I was so evil for even saying it. That's crazy work. But I'm going to stay off that. That's, in a way, opinion. Even though it's foundational. But over here, it talks about, it has Naphtali in here. A place where it's the beginning of ministry for Yehoshua. A place where he talks about, it actually meets. Yeah, Simon Peter. Yeah, Andrew's brother. I was like, hold on, what? I'm telling you, all this stuff, it runs, but, when you take the bird's eye view of things and zoom back in at certain points, it's important to put back in where these things are at. So this is a place where Simon, Peter, Andrew, fishers of men, ministry, right? It says in verse 17, repent, the kingdom of Shamayam, the Radah Shamayam, is at hand. Or verse 19, follow me and I will make you fishers of men, right? So let's go all the way back. Now that we see more about Naphtali and the way to carry a message. Again, this ain't obviously not putting nothing little that the Messiah did to be little. This is just the Messiah knew to keep everything together. It requires everything. So let's start at verse 12. It says, now when Yehoshua had heard that Yehochanan was cast into prison, he departed into Galilee. And leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum. Nazareth, being a Nazarite, not a bougie place. A place people would say is nowadays quote unquote hood, right? They would say, whoa, Nazarite, but humble, knowing that you're rich. Let's keep going. Verse 13, and leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt into Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast. Sea, fowl of the air, beasts of the field, fish of the sea. These are the way things are carried. All right? Salah. Which is upon the sea coast in the borders of Zabulon, right? Or Zabulon and Naphtali. All right? So we break down the characters of Zabulon. It's spelled here Zabulon, or is written out here, if that word scares you, Zabulon, right? Zabulon, that's what it breaks down to. So we have Zion. We could throw in Alav, because Alav is required in everything. Sources is required for everything to react. Or, we could say that's Zion, Zayan. So there's a correlation in that, breaking down characters. And we have Bait, which is B. The U, right, being a V. Vav. Or Uau. Or Wow, I think, W-A-W, something like that, right? Zabulon, right? So we got B, Bait, V, Vav, Lamed, L-A, and then N, Navan, or none, maturity of perfection. So we have, putting that together, the righteous harvest is the tool of the Father for the house, or the righteous house of the Father is nailed in the righteous direction to maturity and perfection is here toward Naphtali. Right? We already broke down what Naphtali means, breaking down, carrying the message. Verse 14, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah, or Isaiah, right? The prophet. Verse 15, saying, the land of Zabulon and the land of Naphtali by the way of sea, beyond Jordan, or Yarden, which is also the thing about what did Joshua and them cross over, right? Not everybody made it through. Where did they cross over from? So they crossed over from, there's another circumcision in a way, crossing over the Jordan, right? Galilee of the Gentiles, right? So there's a work of where this place is, that there's an AP where these words shall not return void, but it takes a place of strife that we were talking about earlier. It takes a place of strife, because if it's not anybody close, it doesn't really, quote unquote, matter. We said all that earlier too, right? It's not really going to make us it's not going to affect us, not really going to make us think about it, right? Verse 16, the people which sat in darkness, this is at that place, right? Is a place of where the harvesting tool of the righteous family leads the righteous direction toward perfection. And that takes the Naphtali. It takes being able to absorb and being able to take the message through destruction. Where is that place of destruction? Where the Gentiles were, quote unquote. And these are the people that are just misguided. These are the people that that is not one specific, quote unquote, genre of people. Right? This is a way of thinking. This is a way of going. This is an unrighteous direction, basically. Verse 16, the people which sat in darkness saw a great light. And to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. Verse 17, from that time Yehoshua began to preach and say, repent, for the kingdom of Shamayam is at hand. This is the way you'll be able to carry this out. This is the way where things come together, right? Let's keep going. Verse 18, and Yehoshua walking by the sea of Galilee, looking at the waters of everything, of the fish, of the way things are carried out, walking, looking at the waters, right? We're going metaphoric. Saw two brethren, Simon, called Peter, later on. That's why I said Simon Peter, or, yeah, that's later. We already know about that. And Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. Also, this place, fishers, that they were usually like shiesty type people. They would step over one person's neck to get to a place to fish perfectly. They will untie somebody else's net. This is a as they say, dog eat dog world in the fisherman way. This is a way of money. There's a lot of different things that happen here. So we got to put the natural, look at the natural to see the supernatural. So in that place, in this place where Yehoshua was walking through, right? Walking through the sea, So we can see how it all comes together. This is where he saw Simon, called Peter, leafy to where the place of where the kingdom would be set upon. He first saw him here. Right? So there's a lot that has to put, now seeing that natural, that has to be put into the supernatural. So this knowing, the land of Naphtali, this is a land that's known. This is a land that's familiarized, but it's also a border. Salah. Verse 19, it says, and he said unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Salah. Verse 20, and they straightway left their nets and followed him. You see how that breaks down much differently now? Much differently. Know about Naphtali. So now when we see Naphtali or Naphtali, you'll know where to go right directly back to. And these are just a few places. I believe in Isaiah, in the video that I was watching, they talked about Isaiah too. That place, I get what they were saying, but it's bigger than that. So I didn't throw that in here. But watching the video that I have, and just ask me for it, I'll send it to you. There's actually an app that some of us are on too. I'll put it in that app. But yeah, that you got to be careful even when you're watching things, and that's why I'm timid, not timid, but aware of sending even video stuff like that, because sometimes things are misguided. It's more deep diving needed for that type of thing. But as we go back and walk this thing out to the end, we go to the Testament of Naphtali. Testament of Naphtali, which brings everything back together. Everything back together in all that we read today. Again, if you missed any of it, want to catch back up, you already know where to go. If not, it's on the top of the TikTok page. But we're going to go to the Testament of Naphtali. We're going to read that through. And it basically summarizes everything, as these testaments do. Seeing the natural, to see the supernatural. Naphtali represented by the diamond. Diamond, you know how it comes from pressure from deep within the earth's crust. But always being a diamond, it's just discovered by people. There's a salah in that. There's reason for that. There's reason for that. So let's go to the Testament of Naphtali. It says the eighth son of Jacob, but it's not. Because it went Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, right? There's even a message in that. Bilha or Bayalacha is translated in some cases, if you want to do just a glimpse, skim over, as perfume, or a perfume sprayed. So in these two, we can see even deeper too as well, with Dan, removing your own sense of judgment, and then Naphtali, what needs to be sprayed, what major concepts are here right now. These are major concepts, not taking anything away from Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, but everybody talks about Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, but Dan and Naphtali, this right here is where some crucial things happen right here. So very crucial things happen right here. Great things happen in the beginning, right? But very crucial things happen here, and so on and so forth. We'll keep going next Shabbat on the next, right? But that should be enough time to get to the Testament of Naphtali. I'm going to read this through, and that'll be it. So after we read this all the way out, we're going to have a song. Well, if anybody wants to, by the time we finish out, just go ahead and send a request if you have anything later on you to say, speak, question, if the answer is provided here, or there's some more studying needs to happen, things of that nature. That's what this is for. Just a campfire. Just walking by, seeing some people over here at the campfire studying, and said, oh, what's that? That's that type of vibe, But let's read. This is the copy of the Testament of Naphtali, which he ordained at the time of death in 130th year of his life, when his sons were gathered together in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, while still in righteous health, he made them feast of food and wine, setting the table. Salah. And after he was awake in the rising, or in the morning, he said to them, I am moving on from here. And they did not believe him. But when did he deliver a message wrong? Verse 4. As he glorified Yahweh, he grew strong and said that after yesterday's feast, he shall move away from here. And he then began to say, Hear, my children, you sons of Naphtali. Hear the words of your father. I was born from Bilhah, and because Rachel dealt craftily and gave Bilhah in place of herself to Jacob, she conceived and bore me on Rachel's knees. That's what we talked about earlier. Therefore she called my name Naphtali, for Rachel loved me very much because I was born on her lap. And when I was still young, she was accustomed to kiss me and say, May I have a brother of yours from my own womb, like to you? Because of the way, right, we can see now. From where also Yasav was like to me in all things. So Yasav being properly nailed in the righteous place at all times, right, even when in Kemet, still protected. With that being said, he had to be able to carry the message out properly too. So Naphtali and Yasav were alike in all ways. Because think about Naphtali really being talked about in a negative way. There's a salam moment on that. Right? Not saying, disclaimer, not saying that he was perfect. Right? So we kind of, that's why I said earlier too, on my knees, y'all showed me the way. It made me think about this because of that part. Not taking away nothing from your hashfai hamashachin. Forbid all that. Ain't even doing that. Let's keep going. According to the prayers of Rachel, look, verse 9 of chapter 1. From where also Yasav was like to me in all ways, in all things, according to the prayers of Rachel. Salah. Because she saw then, after putting her own judgment on herself, right? Now my mother was Bilhah, daughter of Rothias, the brother of Deborah. Not the same Deborah of the judge, but this is a different Deborah. This Deborah was Rebekah's nurse, who was born on one and the same day with Rachel. But having the same name means breaking it down in the same character. So Deborah, judge. Rachel, naming Dan. That came from Bilhah, right? These were the customs then. But a judgment. Maybe there are some things seen. Seeing the natural to understand the supernatural, to see what's instilled, right? Which is also a nurse, which also raised, right? These things translate. So we can see even now the natural to see the supernatural. That's why we say it like that. The super in the natural, right? Verse 10, and Rothias was of the family of Abraham, the bosom of Abraham. See all this mixed in? A Chaldean, Yah-fearing, freeborn, and noble. These are mixed in there too. Chef in Yahweh's kitchen. And he was taken captive and was brought by Laban. We also read about him too. Laban, where Jacob was sent to, right? And he gave him his handmaid, Una, to be his wife. And she bore a daughter and called her name Zilpah. We know about Zilpah, after the name of the village in which she had been taken captive. Salah. And next she bore Bilhah, saying, My daughter hastens after what is new. For as soon as she was born, she seized the breast and hastened to get milk from it. Salah. There's a lot of quick movement straight to the source to get the righteous thing, the righteous milk, righteous direction, right? Chapter 2 says, And I was swift on my feet like the deer. And my father Jacob appointed me for all messages, and he gave me his blessing as a deer. For as the potter knows how much the vessel is to contain and brings clay accordingly, Salah, so also Yahweh makes the body after the likeness of the spirit, and he implants the spirit according to the capacity of the body. And the one does not fall short of the other by a third part of a hair, not even a little bit, for by weight, right, and measure, and rule was all the creation made. Verse 4, And as the potter knows the use of each vessel, which is appropriate for, so also Yahweh knows the body, and how far. Let's start that over. And as verse 4, And as the potter knows the use of each vessel, what it is appropriate for, so also Yahweh knows the body, how far it will persist in righteousness, and when it begins in evil. For there is no inclination or thought which Yahweh knows, which Yahweh does not know, for he created every man after his own image. As a man's strength, so also is his work. And as his mind, so also is his skill. And as his purpose, so also is his achievement. And as his heart, so also is his mouth. As his eye, so also is his sleep. As his soul, so also is his word. Either in the law of Yahweh or in the works of Balaam, right? The wrong way. So it pretty much delivered the message for you right there. If it's not this, it's that. If it's that, then it's this. That's the message. Verse 7, and there is a division between light and darkness, between seeing the spirit behind the thing and hearing, right? That's the place where you find out how to carry the message. That's where you get the message to carry, even. So also is there a division between man and man, and between woman and woman, and it's not to be said that one is like the other, either in face or in mind. For Alachem, the righteous direction of the Father in the flesh, made all things righteous in their order. The 5 senses in the head. Remember, we were talking about the video game character? That's what made me think about this part, because it starts from the head and it goes to the body. Usually in a video game, for my gamers, you start from the head and you go to the body, right? For Alachem made all things righteous in their order, 5 senses in the head, and he joined the neck to the head, also adding hair to it for comeliness and glory. Then the heart for understanding, the belly for excrement, the stomach for grinding, the windpipe for talking, the liver for wrath, the gall for bitterness, the spleen for laughter, the reins for prudence, the muscle of the loins for power, the lungs for drawing in, the loins for strength, and so forth. So then, my children, let all your works be done in order, with righteous intent, in the fear or respect of Alachem, in respect of the righteous direction, bringing it back to the image. And do nothing disorderly in scorn or out of its due season, for if you command the eye to hear, it cannot. So neither can you do the works of light while you are in darkness. Salah. A whole lot of Salah right there. It was so much that my brain was starting breaking down, and as I was reading it, it won't working. I'm gonna dive back into that. It's never done. It's never done. I saw a couple things I want to go back into. Yeah, that's pretty righteous. That's pretty righteous. Promise you I can read. I'm just better at doing multiple things at one time. But surely. Chapter 3, therefore do not be eager to corrupt your doings, right? Or to move first without hearing what you're supposed to do. Because it must start from the right place. So don't be eager to corrupt your things through covetousness or deceive your souls with vain words. Because if you keep silence and purity of heart, you will understand how to hold fast the will of Alachem in the righteous direction, and to cast away the will of the unrighteous. Verse 2, sun and moon and stars do not change their order. So you must also not change the law of Alachem in the disorderliness of your doings. The nations went astray and forsook Yahweh, or the righteous direction nailed in the Holy Spirit, Yahweh, Yavad He, Vav He, and changed their order, right? Took that all out of order, and obeyed stocks and stones, right? Worshipping them things, spirits of deceit. Verse 4, but you will not be so, my children, recognizing in the expanse in the earth and in the sea and in all created things. So it seems like you got to have the mindset of the garden. Verse 4 again, but you will not be so. Why? Because you recognize the expanse, the expanding and the contracting of the earth. In the earth, right after that. And in the sea, the things, the fish of the sea, like you read in Matthew 4. And in all created things in general. Because this is the place where the Messiah walked, right? On the border, against the border of these things, right? Yahweh who made all things, that you do not become as Sodom, which changed the order of nature. Verse 5, in like manner the watchers, because what do deer do? Watch in the woods, in the wilderness of things, right? Salah. But what did the watchers that failed do? They also changed the order in their nature, from whom Yahweh cursed at the flood, on whose account he made the earth without inhabitants and fruitless. Chapter 4. These things I say to you, my children, for I have read in the writing of Enoch, Anache. So it seems like everybody read the book of Enoch too. They were knowledgeable of the scroll, this part of the scroll too. So probably should dive into that too. All right. That you will also depart from Yahweh, walking according to all. Yeah, you will also depart from the Yahweh, walking according to all the lawlessness of the nations, and you will do according to all the wickedness of Sodom. But you will be able to return back in chapter 3. Right? That's where my mom was going to in that moment, because I was like, didn't it just say in the previous chapter that wasn't this? But you got to break it down properly, so it'll be digested right. So just letting y'all know, I can read, but I just read my mind. I'm telling you, I'm a bookworm. Verse 2, and Yahweh will bring captivity on you, and there you will serve your enemies, and you will be bowed down with every affliction and tribulation until Yahweh has consumed you all, until the righteous direction nailed in the Holy Spirit, the righteous direction, Yahweh being the Holy Spirit, right, has diminished you, has consumed you all. Verse 3, and after you have become diminished and made few, what will happen? You will return and acknowledge Yahweh, your Elohim. You will return and acknowledge the righteous direction of your Father. So there's a place where you get to the AY, looking for the Navan, where it starts at the AP, where the words will not return void, what requires the Holy Spirit that meets you at the crossroads, so that way you're able to find the righteous direction to bring back, going from west to south and south to west, which covers north and east. See? If you want to keep going. And he will bring you back into your land according to his abundant mercy, verse 4. And it will be that after they come into the land of their fathers, they will again forget Yahweh and become ungodly. Yet again, this is a process, to be honest. Like, nobody's perfect. I slip up sometimes too. And that just might be just thinking the wrong thing too quick, right? And that's called repenting, but not taking away the part that I was wrong. You know, this is a process, not to say, oh, this is everybody. This is everybody. I'm not going to hear nothing otherwise. This is everybody. Verse 5. He who is without sin cast the first stone type idea. Where we're going with that. Verse 5. And Yahweh will scatter them on the face of all the earth, of all Arat, until the compassion of Yahweh will come. A man working righteousness and working mercy to all of them that are far off and to them that are near. Salah. Just read about that. But also, as we do it, we become those persons too. But we know who we walk after, the role model, the model in the role, right? Chapter 5, for in the 40th year of my life, I saw a vision on the Mount of Olives on the east of Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, the east of the head of peace, where the head of peace is supposed to dwell, right? That the sun and the moon were standing still. Just take some metaphorical mindset right here. And behold, Isaac, the father of my father, said to us, run and lay hold of them, each one according to his strength. And the sun and moon will belong to him that seizes them. Verse 3, and all of us ran together. Levi laid hold of the sun, and Judah outstripped the others and seized the moon. The sun shines light on things, the moon and waters. You know, they goes with the tide. Salah. And both of them were lifted up with them, right? Knowing what Levi has too. Levi, sapphire, righteous direction, Yahweh, emerald, outside the rainbow. After the green, you see green, and then after that, you see the rainbow. It's like saying, like with green screen, you see green first, but really the filter of color is after green. Everything is based off of green. You can see it like that in a way. That'll help you kind of get the metaphor here. When Levi became as the sun, behold, a certain young man gave 12 palm branches to him. 12 rays from the sun, right? Or 12 ways of what is it? Relief, ways of life. Palms are what was laid down on the ground for the mule to walk across, the humility, right? All this goes right here. And Judah, Yahweh, we studied about him, was bright as the moon. And under their feet were 12 rays. So these 12 rays shone upon the waters too, right? The reflection, sun and moon being up at the same time too as well. Throw all that in there, all in the kitchen, all in the pot. Verse 6, and the two Levi and Judah ran and laid hold to them. Verse 7, and a bull on the earth, beast of the field, with two great horns and an eagle's wings on his back, right? Being able to cut through surfaces. Great horns, protection. We could think horns, trumpets. We could think horns, distinctive qualities, balance between the mind. We can go deeper in many places with that, right? And we wished to seize him, but could not. All this coming together, putting it all together. in a sense, we could say also as well there. But Joseph, Yahasav, always knelt in the right direction. What did he do? Per usual, came and seized him, because Joseph could do it, and ascended up with him on high. But this also means something else later on we'll see too. And I saw, for I was there, and behold, a holy writing appeared to us, saying, Assyrians, Medes, Persians, Chaldeans, and Syrians will possess in captivity the 12 tribes of Israel. Chapter 6, and again after 7 days, 7 representing Zion, right? Or proper time, more so. Proper time for things to happen. For in 7 days there was a completion of things, right? But also Zion, a righteous work. On Zion, what Yahweh stands on, sits upon, the mount of it, the highest part of it, the main point, the place searched, right? We could throw all that in here, because it's great to know breakdown in character. Again, 7 days after I saw Father Jacob standing by the sea of Jamnia, and were with him, and behold, there came a ship sailing by, without sailors or pilot, and there was written on the ship of Jacob, the ship of Jacob. The guidelines, the patriarchal things, the things that should be at the top of the mind. Matriarchs and patriarchs. We go down that line. Verse 3, and our father said to us, Come, let us embark on our ship. And when he had got on board, there arose a vehement storm, a terrible storm, and a mighty tempest of wind. And our father, who was holding the helm, departed from us. And we, being tossed with the tempest, were borne along over the sea, scattered about. And the ship was filled with water. It's a lot. Pounded by mighty waves until it was broken. So apparently it's important to get this mindset together with the 12 guidelines. And divided on 9 planks. 9 also tet, which is wisdom. Also snake basket. It's the 9th character. We throw that in there too. 9 rays. Remember we talked about how the rays shine upon the waters. Waters, moon, also sun. Right? Until it was broken, 9 planks, and Levi and Judah were together. Verse 7, and were all scattered to the ends of the earth. Then Levi girt around with the sackcloth. Sackcloth makes you itch, makes you think about something, and makes you realize something. It's your testimony, where the righteous waters must flow from. They were all scattered to the ends of the earth. Then Levi girt around with sackcloth, prayed for us all to Yahweh. And when the storm ceased, the ship reached the land, as it were, in peace. And our father came, and we all rejoiced on one accord. I told these dreams to my father. And he said to me, These things must be fulfilled in their season, after Israel has endured many things. Then my father says to me, I believe Alachem that Joseph lives, because apparently if he keeps talking about him, he's living. So right now, this is the point where Yosef is in Kemet, not knowing or Jacob not knowing this, basically. That's why he's talking about this. So, seeing the natural, you can see the supernatural. Y'all shalom, brother. What's going on, Raj? That's all right. Great to see you, brother. Shabbat shalom, sir. It says, I told these 2 dreams to my father. He said to me, These things must be fulfilled in their season, after Israel endured many things. Then my father says to me, I believe that Joseph lives, for I see that Yahweh always remembers him with you, even in your dreams. I added that in there myself. Verse 3, not to add to the word, breaking it down. Verse 3, and he said, weeping, Ah, me, my son Joseph, you live, though I do not see you, and you do not see Jacob, who begot you. He caused me also therefore to weep by these words, and I burned in my heart to declare that Joseph had been sold, but I feared my brothers. So we also saw something right there, a message to deliver, right? It's a lot. In the hands of the workings of Jacob, of what Jacob went through, with everything that he went through, right? Because the man is not without the woman, woman not without the man, feminine not without masculine, masculine not without feminine, not misconcepted, but knowing of both tendencies. Some have more than the other, right? We men might be like, get up, and our sisters won't be like that. They might plug us in the ear for being so rude, That's what I mean by that. Chapter 8 says, And behold, my children, I have shown the last times to you how everything will come to pass in Israel. Therefore also charge your children that they should be united to Levi, right? The sapphire, and also the Judah, the emerald, around the rainbow. In Revelation 4, I think we went to. Yes, because 7 talks about Dan being removed. So Revelation 4, for salvation will arise to Israel through them, and Jacob will be blessed in them. For though their tribes, Elohim will appear, and through their tribes, Elohim will appear, dwelling among them on earth, to save the race of Israel, and to gather together the righteous from among the nations. If you work that which is righteous, or tabah, or good, my children, both men and messengers will bless you. Not in physical, but in spiritual ways, in guidance to gain that righteous counsel, you know? And Elohim will be glorified among the nations through you, because you now realize how to carry the message, Naphtali. And the adversaries will flee from you, and the wild beasts will fear you, and Yahweh will love you, because silence is dwelling in love, right? It's Shabbat Shalom, says on the Most High. Great to see you, sis. Great to see you. And the messengers will cleave to you. Verse 5, as a man who has trained a child well is kept in kindly remembrance. So also, for a righteous work, there's a righteous remembrance before Elohim. But him that does not that which is righteous, both messengers and men will curse, naturally. And Elohim will be dishonored among the nations through him. And the adversaries will make him as their own peculiar instrument. Remember we talked about Adah last week in, no, not last week, week before, Yehovah. Right? We talked about Yehovah. And how Adah, there's an Adah that had 2 sons, but there's an Adah that also married into Esau. Right? Those brought out many things, even to the point of Eliphaz, right? That tried to take out Jacob. But on the other hand, and Adah and Yahashar, Adah was the first name named after Eve or Iazar. It's the first name you see. They say her name translates to ornament, adorn, in a sense. But there's an intercourse that leads you to see something. And out of Adah came 2 sons that were known for the nomadic lifestyles of tools and instruments. So this is very instrumental, play on words, in our life because of the righteous way. There's a negative and a positive, just like there's a Deborah we read in the beginning of this, and there's also another Deborah, both representing judgment, breaking it down. So you had to apply that because it's the same name, same authority, same calling. You have to apply that to see even more deeper into the script, which is cool to do. It could be the reason why you're in your room or in that book for about 2-3 hours doing these things, but it's righteous, and it can be done. Definitely. And every wild beast will master him. Read in the verse 6, and Yahweh will hate him or ignore him. That's what hate means. To ignore, not look upon, not see in the right place, which is essentially what hate means. But you see how that could go deeper and kind of get that message not relayed properly. You know, if you get the message not relayed properly, you rattle the mind, remember, which messes up the way to digest things, which could cause food poisoning, which allows or makes them not even want to look at you or even look at this or see things like that because you barred them, you know. Verse 7, for the commandments of the law are twofold, and through prudence they must be fulfilled. Right? Verse 8, for there is a season for a man to embrace his wife, and a season to abstain from that for his prayer. So then there are 2 commandments, and unless they are done in due order, they bring very great sin on men, which is true, brothers. Verse 10, so it is also with the other commandments, therefore, be wise in all account, my children, and prudent, which is caring for the future things, caring for the way you get things, the point of it, right? That's what prudent means. Understanding the order, or being under the standard of the order of his commandments, his judgments, not yours, right? We learned that from Dan last week. And the laws of every word, that Yahweh may love you. Because in silence, how was that written before? Yes. The ability to sit and dwell in love of silence is spiritual independence. That's what I was trying to hit on. It won't hit right. I tried it twice. No, now third time I'm gonna get it right. Chapter 9. And when he had charged them with many such words, he exhorted them that they should remove his bones to Hebron, and that they should bury him with his fathers. And when he had eaten and drunken with merry meat, he covered his face and moved on. And his sons did according to all that their father Naphtali had commanded them. So in total, as we finish this out, as this is now done, oh, Big Brother, whatever song you got queued up, after we go through this and pray, we'll play. If you want to come up, go ahead and send up your request now. If not, I'm just gonna talk to you a little bit longer, talk with you, not talk at you, because I don't do that. You could cut me off at any moment, promise you. But to go back over in Naphtali, his mother birthed him on the knees of Rachel, as we read. In carrying the message properly, it is proper to Naphtali. It's proper to Naphtali, right? Carrying improperly can lead that person to sin. That is the one thing you don't want to do. That makes you really guilty. A lot of times that's why I don't say things immediately, because I can, Yah has allowed me to see the ability to just crush it right then and there. But it takes time. It takes time. Even cutting off the head of Goliath, it took David with the slingshot around his head constantly, with a stone, with the rock, what we've been talking about. The word of the Most High around his head constantly, before he even got to the point of contacting Goliath, before he even getting to the point of finishing the message. So, again, it's it takes some time, right? No matter if you can do it. It takes some time because there's a reason, there's a lesson in that. So go back to Yah, go back to that NP, so that way his word that he spoke into Arat won't come back void in you. So you won't see so you will see what you're supposed to see, because void is just saying that you don't see the purpose in it. Void is saying like, hey, this is happening, but ain't no reason for that. Everything has a reason, or it would not be. And it's not destroyed, it's just moved or shifted. Because this is the way. But spiritual independence is the ability to dwell in the love of silence. This is Naphtali. And it's always through strife, through betrayal, because it takes a person of closeness to you. It takes a situation that you're in. It takes the weather that you're in to make you sweat. It takes the weather that you're in to make you cold. It takes the weather that, where I'm going with that. It takes strife. It takes friction. Yahweh speaks into. The wind moves waters. The wind moves pollen. I see that a lot. The wind, it takes friction. This is strife. Again, use the proper words, the proper wording, right? It must come from someone close, right? If not, we wouldn't too much care. Saul and David. The middle one that was carrying the message in that place was Yohanan. Breaking that down, there's a message in that too, right? Yehoshaphat tasted much bitterness from the close ones, the 12 disciples, but not just immediately Judas. Again, not just Judas, but all of them had strife, which is simply a question. That's all it is. It's a cutting. It's not even coming against you. It's just a request for you to say it in a way that I can get it. That's usually all that is. Not always, but usually. And we read in chapter 4 where that leads to also. And then also the bitterness that he tasted, even to the point of salvation. Literal bitterness. Even with saying Psalms 22. Right? That's gonna bother me. Yes, Psalm 22. For some reason, I was just seeing 122. Well, yes, Psalm 22. At the height of battle, Naphtali was given a message, which we read in Joshua 56. We can also see back in when they were at the Battle of Shechem, right? Naphtali are committed in the background. They don't need no pulpit. Pulpit is not a terrible place again, but they don't need that to practice or to preach. And like the diamond, it takes plenty of pressure from deep within the earth to push forth the diamond. The Naphtali keeps structure without being seen, much like the deer, not needing applause to stay obedient. Just like a diamond doesn't need to be seen to be a diamond, or a pearl doesn't need to be, so on and so forth. These things are born of struggle, wrapped in silence. That's Naphtali. Not gaining from exposure, Salah, but from stillness and faith. A secret warrior. This is Naphtali. Silence is not neglected. In many situations, it's divine, allowing Yah to show you and how to sort things out, yet again, to be able to deliver the message properly. moving around unforced, not vanishing, but waiting for timing, like the deer, with feet able to go through all types of terrain, right? And a deer is quiet, agile, sensitive to surrounding, free from yoke and bondage, like a horse and bridle in 32:9. Not caught up in the little things, basically what that means. Able to escape invisible forms of oppression and via fallen spirits, sensitive to sound, speaking things that bring brilliance. This is Naphtali. A branch of prophetic gifts, a tribe, some say, a guideline in all of prophetic gifts, right? These people are seen, known of, but not really seen through scripture. They're in the background, but they're always called forth to carry a message. In 1 Kings 4, we see where they were part of Solomon's wisdom. It was necessary for Naphtali. We see in Matthew 4 where Yehoshaphat started his ministry at, quote unquote, where Simon, later Peter, and Andrew were fishing. So in a place where it was chaotic, it was shiesty, as we say now, or dog-eat-dog world, if you want to go back further. But this is the place where Yehoshaphat was at the border, and it talks about Jordan, Yardan, where Joshua crossed over. After Moses moved on, Joshua took the people. Not everybody can make it, but a certain group did make it across the water. That was like seeing a second circumcision. All correlates. It's not silenced, but in a place of preparation. This is Naphtali, and is ready to leave from that place to speak at any moment. In a way, held back by Yah until they hear the release to speak, having the ability to appear at the right moment in strategic places. This is the spiritual declaration from Yahweh on Naphtali, a divine yearning for spiritual presence. Also after Dan being removed, Dan, the where we talked about removing your sense of judgment, but using a judgment that's already there, the true sapphire. And after that, finding out the one door you're not supposed to go to of Don, right? Not saying Don is terrible people. They did have the chance, as always, even the Judas, even the Cain, to come back into proper belief and proper standing. But after that comes the message and how to carry the message. Now that you've seen the judgment, how to carry that judgment properly in you, not always throwing, that he who was without sin cast the first stone, and also seeing how in the sons of Adam, there were order and lineage and birth and message. But now we see in Jacob, as we're going through, not just about the stones that and crystals that are representative of them in the Avad or the Ephod, but also seeing that their names and birth and order means something. From Ravban, where the sense of nature was a thing, and the digestion was messed up, Ravban or Reuben seeing Bilhah in the wrong water, so seeing something the wrong way, right? And Simeon, Shama'an, either way, seed planting in thorny grounds, digestion, destruction, teeth, gnashing, gnawing. We see how that kind of coincides together. I saw both of those in translation. But either way, him having a problem with the hardened heart, right? And after him, Levi. We know about Levi, the Levitical priesthood, the one that has the sapphire, truly, but was taken away from Dan, and given in the order of Levi, the Levitical priesthood. And we go to Judah, Yehovah, where out of the righteous direction of the Father, there's a place where there's a healing, a question, where there is a Yada. It could be translated as praise, but more so an entering course where things come about. That's what that is. And in between that's where that happens, in order to have proper praise and worship. And then we go to Dan, right? That's how we got that. And now we're coming to Naphtali. So through all that, finding out, the judgment, not saying that this is what's happening with them, but this is the message that can be seen from that. All the way to now, how to carry out that message properly. And that's where we're at now. And next week we'll go where we go. Same campfire, same place, 3 p.m. Shabbat. If you're able to make it through. If not, cool, they record it. Let me know. They're on the tube. But yeah. I believe that's it. And I don't see anybody was coming up, so yeah, we're gonna pray it out, and we're gonna play some music, and we're gonna chat amongst each other, chit chat, whatever it is. as I pick up in here. All praises. Yeah, let me shut this door while we talk to y'all. Tada for walking through that, for walking us through that. For being loud enough to hear, but to be out of sight of self in a way, in order to properly just let things flow. How you pieced everything together, how you walked everything through. It's amazing. And still knowing humbly that it's just a surface. It's not even what all that it is, because it still can be applied in many situations and more things can be seen from it. But to die for bending your ear to us, and to die for keeping free of distractions, even things that happen around. They're not distractions, they're just things that happen, because the message still must be carried out properly. It's real life, real time. To die for the safety of family that was able to come through, and as we depart, safety continues in the hands of Yah. In the wilderness, having the mindset of the garden, we know that it's all a garden. It just depends on what part you're at. Some is thicker, some's not. Some has more thorns, some doesn't. Some is by waters, and some is at top of mountains. But that's where you are at the same time. Asham Yahava, Asham Yahashvai, Asham Ravak HaKodash, Aman, and Aman. Aman, great. All right, that was great. Big Brutus on you at any time. Whatever song you got queued up, go ahead and play that jump. Great time around the campfire today, fam. Great time. We done went from sun and now it looks like it's about to rain in proper way. I'm fine with that. It was kind of toasty outside, but yeah, prayerfully, knowingly it was received correctly. All praises as we went through Naphtali, and take that with you during life, all life, so we can speak life properly. It definitely sits on me. Definitely sits with me. It definitely means a lot. Means a lot. All praise to the Most High. Yes. Tada, sis. Tada. All praises. Love these jumps because it gives me time to just go through with the week, but kind of really have something to zone in on. Because if you keep hearing everything, it's kind of tough to depict specifically what it is. All praises. I'm gonna take that recipe back to the people. What's going on, sir? Yeah, it is Saturday out here too. I got the old school music playing out here. He's working on his vehicle. Vibes. Everybody respectful. It's being amongst people and being able to be cordial. Allow the people to want to talk to you. Some shouldn't want to talk to you, but this just comes with it. It just comes with it. Yeah. Big brother, you there? Well, I can go in the house and play something